Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. This is the second of two information webinar sessions hosted by Customer First Renewables and the Department of Energy and Mines on the Green Choice Program. I'm hoping everyone is finding ways to stay safe and healthy in the times today. My name is Leanne Outhouse, and I'm a policy analyst with the Department of Energy and Mines. I work with the Electricity Policy and Programs team with David Miller, Peter Craig, Kendra Campbell, and we are part of the Sustainable and Renewable Energy Division here at the department. So our department has been working on the Green Choice Program for quite some time, and I am so thrilled to be able to start sharing some of this information with everyone, both last week and today. With ourselves and the Customer First Renewables team have created a partnership to start engaging with key stakeholders on this program as the regulations and the program design is being drafted. We recognize the importance of this early engagement to the program's success and are seeking your input, your comments, your questions, your concerns, your thoughts on this program as it is being designed. Customer First Renewables also has been appointed as the procurement administrator for this program and will be overseeing and administering the program once it is launched. So today's webinar is to introduce participants to the Green Choice Program, tell you a little bit here about, what is the context, who can enroll, why would you want to enroll, some of the program objectives and mechanics, some tentative timelines and considerations for subscribers and IPPs, and then some next steps. Can we go back to the previous slide? Sorry. So leading the session today is myself. I'll be providing sort of some context in the introduction, as well as we have Suzanne, Terrence, and John on the line from the CFR team. Just a few really quick housekeeping items. As everyone can probably tell at this point, most participants have been placed on mute just for the ease of communication. We would like for folks to preferably wait till the end if they have questions. Often, I really love everyone's enthusiasm and engagement, and we really love all the questions that are coming through, but we probably won't have the opportunity to get to them until the end. And any of the ones that are outstanding or a remainder, you can find the frequently asked questions document on the website, which we'll show you shortly. And we'll be updating that frequently asked questions as questions come to us. As I mentioned, if you do have questions, though, you feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A section of the system here, the platform. This webinar and the one that happened last week as well was recorded and is also available on the website. So next slide, please. So why create the Green Choice Program? So a little bit of context and history. Nova Scotia has set the most aggressive GHG goals in Canada. We aim to cut emissions by 53% by 2030 and to achieve net zero by 2050. For many of you on the line, you may have seen yesterday's announcement about the province achieving an 80% renewable energy standard or target by the year 2030. So we are all very excited to hear that announcement as well. So we understand that there are folks in the province as well who would like to get to zero emissions quicker than the targets that have been placed by the province. One of those folks we understand is the federal government. And so as a result of their commitment to achieving 100% renewable energy for their facilities, we entered into a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, in the summer of 2009 to help them achieve that goal. As a result of that discussion in the MOU, it allowed us to start creating this program to help them, as well as some other interested customers, other large corporate and institutions who have similar ambitious climate change goals. So we amended the Electricity Act in February of 2020, and we're currently in the process, as I mentioned, of drafting the regulations to support this program. So the main objective is to encourage large energy customers that are interested to enroll or subscribe to the program. That amount of energy will determine the amount to be procured. A competitive request for proposals will be held. They'll go out for bid submissions. Those submissions will be evaluated by the procurement administrator, and awards will be made and contracts will be signed. We recognize as well that some of the other alternatives that may be available may not service large energy customers as this program is designed to do. There's been some poor adoption of renewable to retail as one of the other options. And of course, there is a large carbon intense electricity mix here in Nova Scotia. So the next slide, please. How can this program become a success? So part of what we're really aiming for here in this early engagement is the concept behind collaborative innovation. So the department, along with CFR, is really leaning into the innovative process by this early engagement, understanding that this information that we're proposing to you at this time is subject to change, and we are open to that change based on what we hear from our key stakeholders. We know that what's being presented, probably we're not going to get it right, but that's okay. And we are willing to make some adjustments along the way as we hear from those key stakeholders. We understand that this program will not be a success without all of these key components being engaged and providing their information and support and their upfront sort of thoughts on this program. So we need the subscribers to have a strong subscriber interest. Those would be the customers. We need the IPP community to be supportive in competitive pricing, as well as understanding that projects with low integration hurdles are what is being sought. We need the support and collaboration of the utility as well to help us design the rate-based installation and for the collaboration to filter through all of the necessary parts of this program that will touch with the utility. As well, we need oh, we lost the presentation.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
In a second. Can you see it now?
I cannot.
Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you, Suzanne. So with all of this in mind, as you're listening to the presentation and as you're searching around on our website, please jot down your thoughts, your questions, things that come to mind as you're listening to the presentation. And just as a reminder that if you have questions, oftentimes the questions will be answered later in the webinar deck here. As well, we will do our best at the end to take questions and to be able to answer them as well as we can, but any overflow that we are unable to get to either possibly could be found right now in the frequently asked questions section or will be added for input. So please let me turn it over to the CFR team. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Oh, here we go. Technology. So welcome everyone, also from the CFR side. My name is Suzanne Fratscher. I'm very glad to be with you today and to have the opportunity to build on what Leanne was just introducing. So we wanted to give you a little bit of a deeper understanding of how the program will be implemented. And then I'll cover who the enrollment target group will be. So for the program, next steps, as Leanne said, Customer First Renewables has been appointed as the procurement administrator, and together with the Department of Energy and Mines, we're in the phase of designing the program. And here, as Leanne said, your input is very sought after and valuable, and we hope to hear from you. The next phase, which is concerning the subscriber community, so those interested customers who are interested in enrolling in the program, will be having the opportunity in multiple steps. So presently we have issued a voluntary subscriber survey, which you find on the website, and which hopefully you will be able to return to us to give us further insights into what your preferences are for the program. This is the voluntary step. Afterwards, somehow in the months of April, May, we will be issuing an expression of interest which is a more formalized part of the enrollment process, and that will indicate the energy need that the subscriber community has in order to determine the quantity of renewables that will ultimately be procured in the second half of the year. The expressions of interest of the buyers will be confirmed by the minister. And as I said, this quantity of renewables that we will deduct from it will then be the basis for the procurement process, which will be directed to the IPP community. Between today and the summer, we are also working on a variety of documents and helping facilitate alignment on the one hand for the request for proposal document and the power purchase agreement, which ultimately will be signed between IPPs and Nova Scotia Power. At the same time, we are working on a subscriber agreement, which the subscribers, so the customers, would then sign with Nova Scotia Power. The signing of this agreement would only happen once the procurement of the renewables has been concluded. So the expression of interest initially is a commitment, whereas at the end of the process, when you subscribe and the customers subscribe to the program, that is when the offtake or the participation in the program is substantiated. In the second half of this year and starting this summer, Customer First Renewables, as the procurement administrator, will issue the RFP. We will run a fair and transparent procurement process. We will collect the bids and evaluate them. The buyer community will be consulted, and we will be able to award the successful project or projects towards the end of this year. We will go in further detail into the timeline a little later into this presentation. Ultimately, there will be PPA contracts or a contract signed with Nova Scotia Power between the IPP community and or the selected developer and the utility. And ultimately, as I said, the subscribers will execute the subscriber agreement with Nova Scotia Power. Now, who can enroll in the Green Choice program? As Leanne said, the program is designed for large corporate and institutional energy users. And this really is defined in a pretty broad sense, as you can see. The focus here, in order to define what large means, is really that your participation in the Green Choice program should have a minimum of 10,000 megawatt hours offtake per year. So with that in mind, we certainly acknowledge that there is a certain percentage of renewables already in the Nova Scotia grid, and we expect corporate and institutional customers to carry the share of that. And so we expect enrollments to go up to 60% of your current annual consumption. So if you look at the minimum enrollment amount of 10,000 megawatt hours per year for the Green Choice program, your minimum load needs to at least have a roughly a 16,000 megawatt hour or 17,000 megawatt hour load per year, so that the 60% share gets you to the 10,000 megawatt hours. Now, we want to open the program for corporate and institutional customers that either have this load at one location in one account or across multiple accounts within Nova Scotia. In addition, for public institutions, be it higher education or healthcare, we want to enable you to team up with other public institutions. Here, the minimum threshold for participation in such an aggregated group would be a minimum share, a program share of 2,000 megawatt hours per year. And the group in total has to collectively sign up for 10,000 megawatt hours to be eligible for the program. Now, why do we think and hope you feel compelled to enroll in the Green Choice Program? Certainly, we, as Leanne said, we know several customers have very ambitious climate goals, and we hope that the program really enables you to achieve those goals by taking concrete action. So first of all, we certainly see that there is an environmental benefit that we hope you will be able to access, as you will be able to claim the renewable energy use, given that the environmental attributes will be conveyed to the subscriber. Secondly, as customers and stakeholders certainly expect increasingly that large institutions and corporations act on climate, you have the opportunity to really show leadership by enrolling in the program and adopting a 100% renewable goal. All of that is certainly needs to happen in a cost conscious manner, and so we see the advantageous opportunity given that renewable energy costs have declined so significantly over the past years, that we will be able to have a program at competitive costs that really help you to incorporate low-cost renewable energy into your bill and minimize the carbon tax impact. And finally, by enrolling in the program, you will enable that new renewable energy assets will be built in Nova Scotia. So there is a societal benefit that will allow you to support the clean energy transition, as well as clean energy jobs and investments in Nova Scotia. We hope this is a compelling value proposition, and we certainly know there is some road ahead of us to getting it right. So we appreciate your feedback. John, over to you to give further details on the program mechanics.
Yep, appreciate that, Suzanne. So Leanne and Suzanne did a great job really conveying the why. So, you know, what's driving the development of this program and why should customers choose to participate in. I think what I want to focus on over the next couple of slides is really the what. So who are the players in this program? How do they all function within the sandbox? And what are some of those key programmatic components that stakeholders should be aware of? So what we have laid out here is an illustration of the contract flows as it pertains to all parties within this program. So the subscribers, the utility, the developer who will be constructing the underlying assets, and then existing assets in this program as well. So beginning with the top right-hand corner, you know, there are existing system energy assets within the grid that are currently providing grid electricity to Nova Scotia subscribers. And in turn, the utility is remitting those developers at a certain grid cost. But in addition to system energy, the intent here is to procure new low-impact renewable energy sources through the Green Choice Program. And those sources will be supplying renewable energy to the grid. In turn, Nova Scotia Power will be remitting a PPA cost to the developer, and that's a $1 per megawatt hour amount. So a cost is ultimately driven by performance of the assets. Nova Scotia Power will be sleeving both the renewable electricity and the existing system electricity to subscribers. So 40% of subscribers' customer load will be tied to existing system energy, and 60% will be tied to the Green Choice Program. So the cost for your existing grid power will remain at your existing retail rates, which I believe is somewhere between 9 and 10 cents, depending on your rate class. And the GCP costs will be tied to the negotiated PPA amount in addition to an integration charge that will replace certain fuel components of your bill. So really just to hit on some of the high points before we roll on to the next slide, once again, this renewable assets will be sourced through a public RFP process that will be administered by CFR. The cost of the program will remain on the customer's retail bill, so there's no need to manage separate invoices or things of that nature. Subscribers will still be paying for costs tied to 40% of the customer load through their existing retail contracts, and environmental attributes will be retired on behalf of the subscribers. The nature in which that will occur is still to be determined, but the intent is to retire those attributes and enable subscribers to meet their environmental targets. Suzanne, maybe roll to the next slide, please. Great, thank you. So before we hit on the program structure, maybe contextualize this conversation a bit by acknowledging that we're certainly aware of the recent announcement by the Premier Office, to ensure that Nova Scotia is sourcing 80% of their energy through renewable sources by 2030, which is a fantastic goal, and we're certainly proud of that level of ambition. Ultimately, we imagine that will have some impact on how we choose to structure this program. However, those conversations are still in early stages. So what we're presenting is the mechanics as we know at this moment, but certainly want to acknowledge that some of these terms and the way we're structuring these components may be subject to change after continuous development between ourselves and DEM. But to note here, the sizing of the program will ultimately be driven by subscriber demand. So, unfortunately, we don't have a megawatt hour sort of expected minimum, but, we anticipate significant involvement from the province, the federal government, and other sort of private and public customers within Nova Scotia service territory. The intent is to roll out future iterations of this program. However, the timing of that is really yet to be determined. As I mentioned earlier, customers will be subscribing to up to 60% of their customer load, with the expectation that the remaining 40% will be already served by the renewables within Nova Scotia's grid mix. Customers will be able to subscribe to tenors between 5 and 25 years in 5-year increments. Extensions will be available for terms less than 25 years. The costs ultimately will be broken down into 2 buckets. So there's the almost pre-subscription cost, which will be the $500 non-refundable application fee. And then you have your operational costs, which will be sort of 2 components: the actual pricing of the asset. So that would be the dollar per megawatt hour sort of PPA pricing that will be sleeved directly to customers, and also an integration charge that will ultimately be, or rather will account for the cost of integrating new renewable, new intermittent assets into the grid. From an enrollment perspective, we will be rolling out a voluntary survey through SurveyMonkey momentarily, and that survey will sort of reiterate some of the key highlights and expected timelines of this program. But ultimately, the purpose there is to get feedback from various stakeholders and also get a sense of expected sizing of this program and what customers' ultimate motivations are for participating in this program. Beyond that, in mid-June, we will be expecting expressions of interest from customers. So these are almost applications of sorts, and it's a requirement to participate in this program. So inclusive in the expression of interest will be a breakdown of customer meters and locations that will be allocated for this program, in addition to that $500 non-refundable fee. The expectation ultimately is to execute these subscriber agreements sometime between October and November of this year, and that will be a parallel process with the underlying PPA executions as well. Before I hand things over to Terrence, just want to acknowledge once again that these components are still under discussion. We are flexible to some degree, so certainly encourage participants on the call to participate in the chat or ask any questions to better your understanding of this program. And feel free to reach out to us through email or through the voluntary service if you have any additional pieces of feedback to convey as well. We're certainly interested in hearing from all parties.
Thanks, John. So as I think John framed it well, the beginning section that Leanne and Suzanne walked through was a little bit of the why. John walked through a little bit of the what, and I'm going to walk through a little bit of the how. So to begin with, talking about the timeline, you'll see there's a handful of streams of activity that we expect to occur over the course of 2021. As we look at the beginning of the timeline in particular, there's an enrollment, a subscriber enrollment process, which begins with a voluntary survey, which is available on the website now, and we're looking for responses to that survey by March 17th. Then as we get a little bit later into the spring, we expect to put out an expression of interest form. And this will be your formal way to indicate your interest in participating in the program. The due date or the deadline for submission of those expressions of interests will be around the middle of June. Once we've received those expressions of interests, we'll go through a process with the minister to confirm enrollment of the subscribers that have expressed interest in the program. In parallel to that, there will also be an ongoing process to review and get stakeholders aligned on the RFP document, the PPA contract, and the subscriber agreement contract, with ultimately an objective of having broad alignment amongst the various stakeholders by the middle of June, and the intention to submit the PPA to the Utility Review Board for their approval by the end of June. We anticipate the RFP to be issued to the IPP community by about the middle of July, and for that to be open and available for responses for about 1 month, with responses due middle of August. As we then get towards the second half of the year, we'll be working through a process to analyze and perform due diligence on the proposals that have been submitted, and ultimately to allow us to winnow down that set of proposals. And through that process, we do intend to consult with the subscribed enrolled customers on the winnowing process and ultimately the projects that are identified for award. Once those projects are identified for award, we then get into a contract execution process. So as you start to look at the October-November timeframe, that's when we would look for both the PPAs and the subscriber agreements to be executed. And just for clarity for any prospective enrolled customers, that is the point at which you would make a firm binding commitments to the program. So the expression of interest essentially reserves your place in the program, indicates the amount of load that you want served, but it's not until the subscriber agreements are executed towards the end of the year that you make a firm binding commitment. Next slide, please, Suzanne. Okay, now I'll talk a little bit about some of the questions the subscribers may be asking themselves. So, for many, this is maybe your first time hearing details of the program. So we will try to walk through some of the common questions or concerns that we hear and that we expect maybe on your minds about the program. So to begin with, from a regulatory process, while the program is being finalized and until the regulation is firmly drafted and the contracts are firmly drafted, it creates some uncertainty about exactly the final form of the agreement. So you may be wondering to yourself, how much influence can I have, or when will I know that this program is through the regulatory process and I can count on the details as they're communicated. Well, as we spoke about on the timeline, we're really aiming to have most of the details of this program firmed up by the time we go to the Utility Review Board in June. So between now and then, this is really your chance to share your inputs, to express your preferences, your concerns, and with that, shape the way that we finalize the design of the program. The primary vehicle for you to do that is certainly these voluntary customer surveys. So again, just to stress the importance for customers to convey their preferences through that vehicle. The second question that a lot of folks ask about is around the program enrollment and what are the sort of different obligations that start to arise as you enroll. So once you are fully enrolled in the program and you have an executed subscriber agreement, from at that point you become you start to have a liability for the monthly payments to the program. Now, those are not expected to start right away. Once contracts are executed by the end of this year, we do anticipate that it'll still be a few years before the projects actually achieve commercial operations. So the monthly payments would only begin once the assets actually start producing. We don't know the exact time frame that will be in, because that will be uncovered during the RFP process. But it's unlikely that it's in the very near term. Typically, it'll take the developer community many months, possibly a couple of years before the projects become operational. So that's the point at which the monthly payments would start to kick in. If for some reason we are unable to meet the full volume that you wish to subscribe, as John mentioned a few slides back, we do currently anticipate that there may be future rounds of the GCP program. So if you're unable to have the entirety of your load satisfied through the first wave of this program, we do anticipate that there's future opportunities to further increase your level of subscription. The other topic that may be on your minds is around, well, what's the flexibility that we have around our subscription volumes? So the first piece is, well, how do we set the right subscription volume from the outset? And really, this is a responsibility of the subscribers to determine the appropriate volume that you wish to enroll from the outset. And so this may require reaching out to your utility and just confirming what your annual usage is, so that your subscribed volumes are related and appropriate for your actual consumption. The second question that often comes up is, well, can we change our subscription over time? And we do want to hear your feedback on this. So please do share your thoughts on this question in the customer survey. However, I will say that it is somewhat complicated to change volumes over time. So it's not an easy provision to provide for. Depending on the level of feedback on this item, we'll explore ways to facilitate this. Just at this point, it's unclear how that would be managed. And then some of you may be wondering, well, what happens if I need to exit the program at some point because of an unforeseen circumstance in the future? So there will be an exit mechanism in the contract, in the subscription agreement, but it will likely be accompanied by an early termination fee. So the exact value of that is still being calculated, but there will be an exit with a fee. And if for some reason you exit and then decide that you wish to re-enroll in the program, that is absolutely permitted. So those are some of the sort of initial considerations that the subscriber community may be wondering about. Hopefully that's addressed some of your questions. But with that, maybe let's change the lens here and shift from customer considerations to considerations for the IPP community. So to begin with, you may be asking yourselves around what types of technology are going to be permitted in the RFP. And the short answer is any technology that meets the definition of low impact renewable electricity according to the province. The other piece that I just want to call out is that as you do propose specific technologies, there have been recent updates to the system interconnection requirements that I think were updated in December of last year. So just want to call that out as something for prospective bidders to be familiar with, to ensure that your proposals are compliant with the latest interconnection requirements. From a project sizing perspective, as I think we've mentioned previously in this webinar, the intention is to procure an amount of volume that would satisfy the entirety of the volumes requested under in the submitted expressions of interest. And amongst those in particular, the subscribers that are confirmed. However, there may be some limitations that we need to factor in as it relates to the grid's ability to integrate additional generation. So that may create a ceiling for the maximum size of this first procurement. The procurement could occur through one single asset or multiple. That's going to be determined as we look at the proposals that come in. I spoke a little bit about commercial operations dates a few moments ago, and we do not have a specific date that is required. We're anticipating that we will see CODs between 22 and 2025. I think we're aware of some customers that have a preference on the earlier side, but recognize that the development timeframe of the assets is what it is and often can't be accelerated much. So fairly broad range there of CODs. From the perspective of the IPP contract, so this will be in the form of a 25-year PPA with Nova Scotia Power. That PPA will take the form of the recent PPAs from prior provincial procurements. So if you're familiar with those, it will look largely like that form of contract. The one addition is that we do anticipate likely the addition of provisions for ancillary services. So that is likely an addition to the prior form of PPA. And depending on IPP credit evaluations, there may be an expectation or a requirement for security posting. From the point of view of RFP selection criteria, this is still being firmed up and something that we anticipate being somewhat informed by this stakeholder engagement phase of the process. But a few of the expected requirements right out of the gate, of course, economics are always very important. So that will be one. There likely will be some eye to location of the projects. I think there are certain areas of the grid that are better suited to receiving additional generation due to transmission capacity in some places, congestion in others, things of that nature. So a grid map is going to be developed and made available for the developer community to indicate certain preferences on grid locations. We are working to develop that with Nova Scotia Power as we speak, and we'll make that available to the IPP community once it's ready. We will, of course, be looking at the development experience of the IPP. We want to make sure that you're going to be able to deliver the project that you propose. And I mentioned that the PPA will likely be updated with some ancillary service provisions. So within the selection criteria, we may look to whether your project is able to provide any ancillary services. This will likely not be a firm requirement, but we do want to try to encourage it. In this presentation, you see that link, the hyperlink there to a recent study performed that discusses the values of ancillary services within Nova Scotia. So it may be beneficial for IPPs that believe they may be able to satisfy some of the ancillary services to look at that study to identify which types of services are expected. The last piece is that, what we're talking about here is an RFP for sort of the first wave of this Green Choice program. At this point, we do expect that there will be additional RFPs, whether it be for future iterations of the Green Choice program or, prospectively for the province, certainly in light of the increased renewable energy goal that's been announced this week. There are certainly no firm plans for that, but certainly something that is conceivable given that increased goal. Okay, so gone through quite a lot over the past few minutes. With that, maybe we can sort of turn to the next page, which Suzanne, if you could flip over. Thank you. Which I think takes us to some of the next steps. So I'll start to wrap it up here, and then we'll reserve some time at the back of the call to talk about some of the Q&A. See, there's been a lot of activity, so appreciate all the questions that have been coming in. Just to break it down by main stakeholder groups here. So for the subscriber community, we've mentioned this several times, and just really to hammer home the points, we really value your feedback. We'd like to hear from you. So please go to the website, find the voluntary survey, and look to submit that to us by March 17th. If there's any information that is not addressed by the website itself, the FAQ document that's on the website, these recordings of the webinars, then feel free to reach out to us. We want to make sure everyone has as much information as we're able to provide. From the IPP community perspective, you should anticipate issuance of an RFP this summer. Current target is mid-July. We will be reaching out to you for your feedback into the PPA and the RFP. Those are not ready to be shared today, but we will be making the IPP community aware once those are ready for comment. From the utility perspective, we've already begun discussions with Nova Scotia Power, and really looking for their collaboration to help us make sure that we're crafting a green choice program here that really can become a great example for other jurisdictions to follow across Canada and frankly across the world. And then lastly, from our perspective as the procurement administrator and for the Department of Energy and Mines, we'll be continuing to have some follow-up calls with different stakeholders in the weeks ahead. We're working on crafting the RFP document and the PPA document, and starting to get feedback from the various stakeholders on those documents. And with that, I think that I'm done with the content that I wanted to walk everybody through. So I appreciate everybody dialing in and listening in. As I think we've mentioned a few times, we really value everybody's input. We want to try to gather as much feedback as we can at the beginning so that we set ourselves up to create a successful program here. So please do reach out with your thoughts, concerns, and comments. With that, I will maybe turn it back to Leanne if you want to sort of chair the Q&A, or sort of, let us know which other questions you'd like to answer. It looks like you've already done a great job answering them in the Q&A so far.
Yeah, thank you very much, Terrence. So the website is here, as everyone can see on the screen, as well. I shared it in the chat. The emails there will both find yourself or your way to myself and or Suzanne. Generally, you're safe to email us both, and one or the other or both of us will get back to you depending on your questions. If you want a more targeted approach, for example, the Department of Energy and Mines will be leading a lot of the discussions with the IPP community, the First Nations communities, as well as the utility. Customer First Renewables will be leading a lot of the customer side of the equation as a general statement. So again, if you have questions or you want to follow up, email us both, but a little bit of direction there in case you're trying to manage your time a little bit better. I had a very engaged back and forth question and answer session going on during the process. So a lot of those, I hope were covered today in the webinar. Some of them are currently available on the website under the frequently asked questions document, which is available under the resources tab. I'm trying to, if you have any additional questions that we have yet to answer, or that there are people who are interested, we can start answering them live now. Just trying to see what we got in here that might be of interest to all folks. So as we mentioned, the copy of the slides as well as the recording of the webinar is also available on our website.
Yeah, and one question that came up by several people was the question around the 40-60% enrollment. Perhaps you or the team want to comment on that.
Absolutely. So the current mix in Nova Scotia on the electrical grid is legislated and a required 40%. With the onboarding of the Maritime Link expected to happen in the next year, maybe two, depending on the timeline delays there, that is expected to bring us up to about 50 to 60% in this sort of the next couple of years while this program is happening. So those requirements are there. It is expected that those legacy renewable energy assets that were procured on behalf of all customers, including those enrolled in the Green Choice program, will continue to pay for those assets. The portion that is not currently met by those renewable energy assets on the current electrical grid is what we're seeking to enroll in the Green Choice program. Of course, we are open to your input and your feedback on that particular thing, as well as if folks are interested in signing up for an amount above 100% of their electrical load. For example, if you're planning some significant electrification at some of your facilities, if you're expanding a facility or doing some upgrades, any sort of those kind of major electrical or energy use changes, interested in hearing how that should be considered as part of the enrollment in this program.
Another question.
Few questions about the prospective costs or economics of the program. And so I think the answer to those questions is that we do not yet know what the economics will look like, because that is going to be driven in large part by the pricing that comes back in the RFP process. However, we do recognize that for this program to be successful, we can't develop a program that entails a significant cost premium for subscribers. So our objective is to try to structure this program in a way so that the economic proposition can be sufficiently attractive that we maintain customer interest. Now, I don't know at this stage whether that means it's going to be cost neutral, cost saving, slightly cost additive. That's going to come out in the wash as we run the RFP and have specific pricing to propose. But rest assured that we recognize this program will not be successful if it's going to be a significant cost premium for subscribers. So we're doing what we can to structure it in a way so that the economic proposition can make sense for everybody.
Another area of question was around the environmental attributes. Leanne, perhaps if you want to comment on that. You're on mute.
It's okay, Suzanne. I was reading out loud one of the questions in my head.
Yeah, so as I said, there were a couple of questions around the environmental attributes. Certainly, as we said earlier, the objective of this program is to have the environmental attributes transferred to or retired on behalf of the subscriber. That is really the big priority that we're pursuing, and that's the objective in order to allow you to make a renewable energy claim. For the remainder of your grid procurements, we assume that the setup remains the same as it is currently, but we would certainly appreciate to hear from the customers your requirements and in order to make scope 2 reduction claims and renewable energy claims. So please voice what you need and we will try to address it. Leanne, are there any other questions that you think we should discuss live here, or are there any others that we certainly have not yet come through? It's a multitasking exercise to be responsive to your questions, obviously. Again, several of them have been already answered either now directly or through the frequently asked question document that we have online. But if there are any questions that seem to be.
I see if there might be a little bit of a confusion happening. So if you are a current customer in Nova Scotia who pays an energy bill, then you as a customer will be enrolling and subscribing to this program through a contract mechanism, and that the payment will happen on your current electrical bill. So if you are currently a customer with Nova Scotia Power, you will be signing a subscriber agreement with Nova Scotia Power for this program and the volume in which you are participating. The bill structure will show up similar to your regular electrical bill with maybe a couple of lines difference that will show this program. The mechanism and the cost structure and how it is calculated is still open for discussion. So that cost component portion, I believe Terrence was speaking about it earlier, is something we're actually actively seeking some feedback on. If you are an IPP, so a developer of renewable energy, you will be signing a long-term commercial contract with the utility, also known as a power purchase agreement. And that power purchase agreement will assign those specific payments or a tariff rate essentially for payment for that energy source. I hope that helps to answer some questions out there.
Yeah, there's been a question about.
So I'm sorry, I wanted to just talk quickly about fits and comfits. So I think that a set LCOE is a great way to address newer renewable energy, and certainly we have sought that mechanism to calculate for wind back when we were doing the last wind procurement, as well for other types of energy like tidal, where some of those components are less known. However, this program will be cost competitive, so it will be a bid process based on competition. We think that that is what will serve customers the best and ratepayers the best. Sorry, Terrence, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
No worries. There was a question about making public announcements and collaborating on public announcements, and I think that's a dimension that will be sort of up to the subscribed the subscribers, the enrolled subscribers, to determine if they'd like to do that. I don't see why that couldn't be feasible, but it would be something that would need to be coordinated amongst amongst the subscribers and those that are interested in doing so. But we certainly want to enable subscribed participants to talk about their role in the program and helping to bring it about and through their demand. So certainly want to try to facilitate those kinds of claims to the extent that subscribers want to collaborate on them. That's up to them.
Yeah. I still see some questions and clarity coming in around the 40-60 split and about 100% renewable energy. So I wanted to add additional clarity where if you are subscribing to the Green Choice Program, you are no longer subject to any of the fossil fuel asset payments on the grid. So the portion in which that you enroll to the Green Choice Program, you will not be paying carbon tax on those assets. You will not be paying any costs associated with those assets.
Want to be 100%.
If you want to be 100%, we will help you claim 100%. So if there is a mechanism in which that you would be comfortable in that claim, we are here to hear it. We want to know what it is that you need for that reassurance. However, if a customer wants to sign up for 140% of their energy, absolutely. Tell us why. However, customers will continue to pay for those renewable assets that were procured on behalf of all customers at the time in which they were procured. So that 40% of the grid right now that is renewable will continue to be paid by all customers.
Another question, perhaps Terence, you want to answer that one, was around the mismatch between the long-term PPA contract that will be signed 25 years between the developer and the utility versus potential shorter-term subscription units by the buyer community. Perhaps you want to comment on how this dilemma is to be resolved.
Yes, so the term of the PPA between developers and Nova Scotia Power will be 25 years. That's the framework that's been developed under the prior provincial renewable procurements, and so that is independent to the term of the subscriber agreement. So there is certainly the possibility that some of those subscriber agreements end up being for less than 25 years. That will not impact the term of the PPA. I think we mentioned there was likely to be some sort of tiered pricing structure for subscribers, not for IPPs, but for subscribers, that will reflect the sort of the greater preference for longer term subscriber agreements. So we do anticipate that longer term subscriber agreements will be priced more favorably than the shorter term.
Again, a lot of questions. It's kind of
I really love all the engagement, and I really do appreciate everyone's questions. Some of them we have thought about and some of them we haven't, which is really great because that was the whole point of this early engagement and just the collaborative innovation design, is to make sure that we are thinking of all these questions, because sometimes, we don't know what we don't know. Kevin, I don't know if we have the ability to let someone off mute to explain a question.
I can try.
I think it's Kevin there that was looking to ask a specific question. I think, oh no, he's gonna follow up with email. Totally fine. Thanks, Kevin.
Great. Yeah, I think with that, we will certainly, as we said, try to make sure to be responsive. And as Leanne said, appreciate very much your time to joining the webinar, to being engaged, asking your questions, and please feel free to use the emails. We will definitely make sure that we get back to you. And the more you, again, have concerns or even have ideas how concerns can be overcome, that is great. We, as Leanne said earlier, it's really a matter of making this a collaborative, innovative process. So we will need creative thinking from all sides. And so appreciate your input here. And again, we will make sure that this recording as well as the presentation deck will be available for you on the website, so you can listen into this one or the prior webinar as well. So with that, let me thank you on behalf of all of us, and we hope you to engage with you in the future and to have a very successful program that we can shape together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.